welcome back to day 4 of Composition Camp. We got some great stuff for you today. The first thing, the challenge of the day, is to compose a variation on a Yankee Doodle. Lots of composers do this. They'll take melodies that aren't really their own and they will change it in a way that makes it their own. And so we're going to take Yankee Doodle and then you get to change either the rhythm, the melody, or the harmony in order to create what we call a variation. And I'll talk more about this in the next little video here. Second of all, we're going to get a song called Electric Groove. Most of the song's already written, but you get to compose the melody for a trumpet. And you're going to learn a little bit more about how to compose for certain instruments. We'll talk a little bit more about the trumpet specifically, about which notes they can play, how they play. Also, we'll learn a little bit more about how to choose a scale in order to make a melody. One of the things that composers frequently do, especially when you're young, is you just throw a bunch of notes down and hope it sounds good. But if we pick and choose which notes to leave out, really, then we can actually create some really, really cool melodies.
Day 4 Creativity Challenge, Yankee Doodle Variations. Variations are a way to change a melody so it sounds different and unique. Composers all throughout history have used variations to create compositions. Usually the theme is stated pretty plainly at the beginning, then a new section begins that changes the theme in one way or another. In this challenge, listen to the melody of Yankee Doodle, that's a very common melody, and then compose one variation in the next section. I'll give you some ideas on how to do it, but let's listen to the melody first. All right, and so that's the Yankee Doodle. It sounds right. It has all the right chords and everything like that. Now, compose a variation of Yankee Doodle, and there's lots of things you can change. You can change the rhythm, you can change the harmony, you could change the melody, or even something else. And lots of composers have done this. In fact, one of the most famous ones was by Mozart. He used a folk song, I think it's a French folk song, and we would know the melody most commonly as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. But of course, when he wrote it, it had a different name because it was in French. But it's Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It starts off very plainly, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And then there are actually 12 different variations of how he was creative and composed different ways of doing that. I highly recommend listening to it. So here's something you can do. Instead of just doing straight quarter notes like it starts here, be a little creative. Let's see. I'm going to do a dotted half note, make that a 16th note, so here's what I did. I made the same melody but with a different rhythm. So let's hear what this sounds like. When you're composing, always go back and listen to what you do just so you can hear what it actually sounds like. Okay, so there's one idea. Now, I changed the rhythm on that one. You might also try changing the melody a little bit. Let me continue on. Let's hear this one. Okay, so it still sounds like Yankee Doodle, which is the point of it, but I changed the melody just a little bit right here by adding a couple extra notes. Usually it just goes C to B, but I added those extra notes in here. Now another thing I can do is I can change the harmony. So let's see, in this measure, I might try, instead of a C chord, a minor chord, like an A minor chord. Let's hear what that sounds like in measure 9 again. Yeah, so that gives it a totally different feel, doesn't it? All right, so those are some things that you can do as you create your own variation of Yankee Doodle. The sky's the limit on this one. You can be as creative as you want. You can do some really, really funny things. You can do some really, really sad things and make it sad. You can make it happy. You can make it fun and lively. There's all kinds of ways of doing it. So be creative and have fun with Yankee Doodle variations. All right, so here's a composition called Electric Groove. And this is it should sound familiar because it has an ostinato pattern for the electric guitar. I already composed that part. You get to compose a melody for the trumpet above it. I also wrote in a part for the drum set so that it sounds even more rock and roll like. So this should be pretty fun. Now let's get started with this one. So use these notes to compose a funky melody for the trumpet. This challenge starts with a pickup notes, which are a common way to start a melody. And be sure to use eighth notes in your melody, and here's the most important part, include rests. You know, if you're playing the trumpet, you are using your wind to make the sound, your air, and so you have to be able to breathe, so you need some space to breathe. So we're going to use, it's actually a G pentatonic scale, but it's a little out of order because I wanted you to get the D and the E down here. And then here's the root of the scale, G, G, A, B, D, E, and then G. This is actually a pretty high note for trumpet, so you probably would not expect a elementary or junior high trumpet player to be able to play that. But with lots of practice, you can definitely get that one. But feel free to use that range because that's a fair range for a trumpet player. And so let's just listen to it a little bit and get kind of the understanding of it. Notice I start on beat 3, so it goes 3, 4, 1. Let's listen. Notice the transposition here. All right, and so at this point you get to start composing your melody. Now you can do a lot of different things with this one, but the most important thing, if you want it to sound good, is stick to the scale that I gave you up here. D, E, G, A, B, D, E, G. Now a couple of things here. If you stick to those notes, it'll sound great. The hard part, I think, is coming up with a great rhythm for it. And so here's what I would do. Usually you want short notes to lead to long notes, and long notes sound better when they appear on beats 1 or beat 3. So I said include rest as well, so I'm going to have 3, 4, 1, rest, rest. I'm actually going to make that a quarter rest, and then I'm going to do an eighth note. I'm going to make that one a quarter note. Okay. Now, I heard it a little bit, but I want to hear it in the context of the whole song. So let's hear it back here. Okay, so that might not sound too bad. And so I'm getting this groove going where I'm leading into beat 1. Such an important idea here. I'm going to start here on beat 3 this time. Let's see. Okay, so here's my next rhythm that I wrote in here. So it's quarter, quarter, quarter. Now let's listen back, and I'm going to suggest a change. Okay, now right here, that sounded okay, but what if I did that a little bit differently? I made it into 2 eighth notes on the same note. Don't forget you can repeat notes on like the same note in a row. Let's see how that sounds a little bit different. So that gives it a little bit more flair. In fact, one more thing you can do as you're doing this, you can add some accents and things like that, which are, there we go, articulation. And so you can accent one or make one staccato. I'm going to make the next one accented. And it actually will play back a little bit differently. It's amazing that what computers can do. And so you're going to keep going and keep working with that same kind of pattern where you lead into beat 1 or into beat 3. And so have fun with this one, be creative with it, come up with some great melodies. One thing you can do, I forgot to mention this earlier, but you can always make a copy of a score. If you go up here and you hit go to score, you can hit save a copy. It'll create a duplicate of that score so you can do it again. You just might have to delete what other parts you've done already. And then you can recreate a brand new melody for Electric Groove or any other song that we're doing. Of course, explore other options with just creating your own score. To do that, you go to the very top where it says Note Flight and you just go New Score right here. and it'll create a new. It actually will ask you what instruments you want. I'm going to leave that because I don't need to save the changes. Lots of different options here. You have rock band, you have string trio, lots of orchestral stuff. You have a jazz quartet and combo and brass groups. You can even go all the way and get pretty expansive with like a symphony orchestra, handbells, all kinds of things. There's all kinds of fun stuff. So keep having fun and exploring making music. This is just your opportunity to be creative, to explore things without making or having the fear of making mistakes. That's the great thing about computer composition.